First of all, welcome. My name is Scott Restivo. I'm with Crow Canyon Software. I'm up here in California, and I'm joined by Aidan O'Flaherty down in Sydney. Aidan and I and his group down there in the Tulich communities have been working together over the past 1 or 2 years to produce this ASSETjourney AMP. Tulich owns 4 villages with a number of ILUs and retirement homes, and they needed to meet the legislative requirements like every operator in New South Wales does. So what we did is got together and took what our existing asset management program and adapted it for the specific purposes of the legislation that came out recently, the Retirement Villages Act down there in New South Wales. And we think that's going to spread to throughout all Australia, maybe even New Zealand. And we're hoping that our AMP program, our application, can well serve those purposes. We already have a number of operators using it in the New South Wales area, and we're welcoming, we're thankful for you guys to join and get a insight into what we're doing here. And so we'll explain that to you. I'll go through a few slides, and then Aidan will take over and show the actual application. Also, I also want to point out is that we're doing a number of one-on-one demos where we meet people individually or groups of people at these communities and talk to them directly about what they need. And that's a very fruitful conversation, because then we can really understand what your needs are and how we can fit into that, into the situation you have there, and with your asset management and your task management, and really help you meet those legislative mandates. So let's get going. So, we call it AMP Made Easy. It's available on desktop, mobile, tablet. It's a program that meets the requirements of the Retirement Villages Act and the amendments to it, which is essentially to have AMP in place by July 1st, 2022. This year really isn't that long. I mean, what, 4 or 5 months? 5 months. And as I understand it, you need 60 days in order to give time for your residents to review it. So really, we're looking at the end of April. When they think of that, it's only 3 months. And it's doable if you get started. And that's why we're having these webinars, to encourage that movement in that direction, to really get it in place. And now what we're finding is we're having a number of residents coming, and the resident associations, not residents themselves, but residents associations are coming. They want to hear more about this and what we're doing. And you might find it from the ground up that your residents are starting to say, where's our AMP? We want our AMP. Where's our AMP? Who knows? But they want the reports anyway. So it applies to New South Wales. It's likely to apply to other states soon. There's a bunch of documentation on the government websites about what it actually requires. We've been through it thoroughly to make sure our AMP meets those requirements. It needs to have an asset register where you register every asset above $1,000 capital expenditure. There's a maintenance schedule, estimated and actual needed, and there's a 3-year report for capital maintenance and expenditures, and it must be available to residents. Now, the thing with available to residents means that they make a request and you need to provide it. It doesn't have to be printed, as I understand it. It can be electronic within 7 days, and all that's available with our program quite easily, to provide those kind of reports when they come asking for it. Again, it's the asset register itself requires any major item of capital, which is defined as anything over $1,000 or more, 1,000 Australian, of course. Registers must include the effective life of the asset. How long is that refrigerator effective life? How do you find that out? Well, there's the ATO tables you can go to, and how long a refrigerator, a dishwasher, or microwave is supposed to last. And what assets that are shared must have percentages attributed accurately across the 2 places they're being shared. Whether it's like 2 villages, or it's a common area, et cetera, et cetera. So all that's built in. There's places Aidan will show you where we can you can enter that information into the asset register quite easily. Now, here's the key point of the law. Operators cannot charge residents for maintenance or repairs of a major item of capital if the item is not listed in the asset register. That's according to the rules and regulations there. So that's why it's very important to have this asset register in place and up to date. Now, next part of asset management plan is a maintenance schedule, and this sets the details for maintaining, replacing the items of capital, the refrigerators, dishwashers, swimming pools, whatever's over $1,000, and includes information about planned maintenance, repairs, replacement, estimated. And Aidan and I, when we're having these conversations, always talk about, well, it's hard to estimate what the cost of someone's going to break in 2 years. How do you know? But there's ways around it, and Aidan, being a very experienced operator with Tulich, can help give a lot of guidance on that, and how you can actually meet the legislative requirements in a realistic way. So And all these schedules are generated from the asset register you prepare. So it's kind of like one thing feeds into the other. Then there's a 3-year report for capital maintenance. Each asset, you want an estimate of the cost, dates, and type of proposed maintenance, or proposed repairs. You're kind of giving residents a little bit of view into what they expect as far as costs. That's really what it's about, essentially. And any assets within 1 year of effective life or accumulated costs that are greater than 90% of the purchase price. A little detail there, but basically it's meaning that anything that's likely to be repaired and replaced in the next budget needs to be put into the 3-year report. Now, I'm saying every major item of capital over $1,000. Our asset management plan is certainly capable of keeping track of any asset you want, and we're able to segment out for the reports the ones that are required legislatively for over $1,000. You can also track every other, something costs $500 or $100 or whatever you want to track can be done in our program, and at the same time able to meet the legislative requirements by having a filter that says anything over 1,000 needs to be in report, and things under 1,000 don't. So you can keep track of both of your assets, both types of assets, I mean, and in our plan, while still meeting requirements to issue 3-year reports based on the major items of capital. Okay, now one part of this also is there needs to be an independent assessment of the AMP. I'm not quite 100% sure that's going to be, except we know that residents have 60 days to review and comment. And what we're hearing from the resident associations is they are, at least some of them, residents vary. Some are very actively involved, others are more laissez-faire about the whole thing, but they do have 60 days to review and comment. So this independent quantity surveyor or auditor of the village must confirm that the plan meets the regulations. Just something to keep in mind. I don't know how strict or stringent that will be, but it's certainly something to consider. It must be kept up to date whenever you buy or purchase a new item of capital, and after any maintenance or repair of an asset. I'm sure if you just replace one screw, you don't have to maybe update it, but anything over a certain amount, that's reasonable. If the 3-year report gets amended for some reason, and if your estimation was off 25% or more, you need to keep this plan up to date. And all that's doable. It's not as hard as it seems. I just take it one step at a time and keep track of it. Once you have the asset register in place and the reports in place, then the management plan follows along quite nicely by being able to be updated and prepared. Now, this is a guide we got from one of our partners, MDFM, about preparing it. And this webinar is not on how to prepare an AMP per se, because there are a number of steps. But we can help if any questions or well, there's some questions. I don't know, Aiden, if you see the questions, you might want to answer them, but I got to keep going with the conversation here.
It's all good. I'm monitoring them, don't worry.
Okay, good, thank you. Determine what system you're going to use for AMP. And I always say, kind of joking, well, that's easy, ASSETjourney, of course, right? But obviously there has to be some evaluation and analysis of that. So we'll just leave that hanging for now. You basically want to capture the asset data, then import it into your register. We have import templates that assist with that to bring it right in from an Excel spreadsheet right into our asset register. And from that, you prepare a maintenance schedule. That's done more or less automatically based on the asset register data. And you want to adequately, you got to keep track. You got to keep the program going. And one thing about Crow Canyon, our company up here in California, we're based in California, but we're a worldwide company, software company. We have the support team. We have a group in the APAC region. We have a group in the United States, of course, and Aiden and his team down there in Sydney to keep, help you with keeping the program up to date as far as, software updates and things like that. So, but you do want to keep track. Another element they're saying is number 5 is that, you obviously have to have people who are keeping your asset management plan up to date. And of course, that's on your organization to do it. But we'll keep the software up to date. We'll keep everything going with that to help you meet if any legislative requirements change or there's new laws or, you never know what's going to happen or different interpretation of the regulations. So we'll be there to help with that. Okay. It's what I said earlier, that we meet all the legislative requirements, but you can include assets, not just the ones over 1,000. We have a maintenance task element to it. We have an import template. We're highly customizable. We can integrate with other third-party systems, mobile friendly, and we run on Office 365. Now, if you don't have Office 365 in place, we will set you up with a hosted version of our AMP so that you can join in. You can easily use it kind of as a SaaS or cloud-based solution. And just a couple more slides. I think we're almost at the end. We also have a work order option available if you want more comprehensive management of work orders, where you track time, parts, costs, and you can bring in outside contractors. You have recurrence, Microsoft Teams integration if you happen to be using Teams and Office 365. All that goes on if you want the more comprehensive version of the work order. It's just an additional component of our system, but it's not a necessary or required part of ASSETjourney AMP. So I'll leave you with a few, get in touch and all that. We're available sales@assetjourney.com. Request a demo. You can just go to our website, assetjourney.com, and contact, or you just see the information there. And contact form. Of course, you can always give Aidan a call. He'll be glad to talk to you. And we're hoping we can help you with your journey on the of getting an AMP in place. And now Aidan will show the program itself. You ready for that, Aidan? We'll switch over to you. And
yeah, all good.
All right. I think I'll turn off my camera too to save on bandwidth. But I thank you, everyone, and go ahead, Aidan. Okay.
You just
I'll switch over presenter to you. Yeah. Give me a second. Make you the presenter. There you go. Okay, you're all set.
Okay, so I'm hoping you can see my screen. Maybe Scott, you can.
Yes. Let me get that. Yeah, I can see it. Oh, I see the one screen. Yeah, there we go. You're good. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, I'm still on. Yeah, you can still hear me. You're good. Yeah.
So I'll get rid of this.
There we go. Yeah, there you go. I see the dashboard screen kind of spread wide. I guess you're on two screens or one screen.
Yeah, so I guess this is what the face of ASSETjourney looks like, right? So I guess reiterating some of Scott's points and just general background. So I guess Scott went through all the sort of legislative items. Obviously, the Secretary guidelines brought out a whole bunch of things that every retirement village needs to do. Quite extensive, as you can see. So we've been looking at this. So I am the CFO across 4 or 5 villages. Each one of those villages has both aged care and retirement. Some just have aged care, which actually doesn't apply to this AMP. But we've been looking at this for probably the last year since all this started coming out until it got legislated. We partnered with Scott as a provider because they already had an asset management program in place, and basically tailored it so that every aspect of the legislation is met through this program. It gives you all the relevant reports, and basically it's an all-in-one system. So from getting your initial assets in there, all you really have to do is maintain your assets, as in any new assets you buy would go in, any you dispose of go out, and every time you maintain or repair an asset, you track it in this system. Once you're doing those things, all your reports are up to date. So just picking up on a couple of the points that Scott was talking about, as he was talking about the auditing of the AMP, just a bit of background. So I would urge you to start having those conversations with the auditors now, pretty much, which I'm doing at the minute, because it's a bit of a change piece for the auditors as well. If you do go the auditor route, sometimes the other option is QS, but obviously you still need to have those conversations, because the big thing at the minute is timing. So timing is of the essence. We all essentially have 2 months to basically get this together, get all our asset data together, get it into a program, get all the reports done. And that's obviously what we're trying to do to assist, is once you have your asset data, you stick it in ASSETjourney, you have your reports, you're ready to go. Because really every New South Wales retirement village only has 2 months. So it's not long, and I guess what we're finding from working with Scott and our experience working with ASSETjourney is once you get the assets in there, it's very easy to manage. It's highly customizable, which I'll start showing you through. And that's a bit of a background, I guess. So this is the face of it, what it looks like. So again, this is Office 365 based, so highly customizable. I guess those of you who use Office 365 and SharePoint and things like that know that it's highly customizable. You can add and swap and change things. So you can have this dashboard sort of tracking whatever is important to your village. Again, what we're finding from talking to a lot of villages about this and doing demos, every village is different. So there's all little instances of differentiation that's needed within this program, and ASSETjourney and Scott and his team can do that. So this is highly customizable. I guess the main items that really are within ASSETjourney are your assets. There's a maintenance section where you can obviously maintain and repair your assets. There's the reporting section, which is obviously the reports that are required per the legislation. You can track all your suppliers and contractors in here. So they're obviously the people coming in doing the maintenance. You can track them in here and anything you want. You can put your preventative maintenance contracts in there. If you want to track software, you can. I guess I'll start just having a look at the reports and show you the end goal of why we're doing this. So why are we doing this? The legislation requires us to have a couple of reports, which is what's here. So these are all custom built reports tailored for the retirement village legislation. They exactly match what's required. If you actually read through the RV Act and go through the sections, exactly what is required in the sections is in these reports, and I'll run some in a bit. But what do we actually need? So we need an asset register, which will basically detail all your assets and all the information required per the legislation. You need a maintenance schedule estimated, which is your 10-year plan. You need a 3-year report, which is a version of the 10-year plan, but obviously it's 3 years. And specifically, this one is the one where you need to give it to your residents every year as part of your budget, 60 days before. And as part of that 3-year report, which is one of the interesting items for your residents, and probably a key reason they brought this all out in the first place, is highlighting items which have a year or less of effective life, or items where you've actually repaired it to 90% of the purchase price. So those 6 reports, but in reality it's 4 because these 3 come together. They're the legislative reports, which is basically the end goal of what we're doing. Once you have all your information and maintaining information in the system, those reports will always be live and up to date, which is super important given that any resident can request to see these reports at any given time. I think you've got to give it within 7 days. The legislation doesn't really say, well, it does say, it says you can either have a printed version or electronic. I don't think they really thought through the whole printed version, because as you can imagine, once you guys start doing this, there's going to be a lot of lines and a lot of stuff in it, and how you're going to print that out is going to be an issue for everyone. So we are generally doing electronic, so there's an option there. So that's sort of the end goal. What I might quickly take you through is, I guess, how an asset looks, and what I'm really going through here is adding an asset, right? And as I add this asset, really, it will give you a view of the information that's required when you add an asset, which is very linked to legislation. But just noting that you don't have to go in and add every single asset like what I'm doing. There is an import template, which is in Excel. That Excel template has all the information you need to put in for each asset. You fill it out, it gets imported, all your information is in there. Sort of like this screen. These are all assets, this is all the information. As a dashboard, as they're highly customizable, so you can actually switch where you want categories, you can filter and sort and do anything. So if you want to filter by room, for example, we can see what's in the admin office versus the honesty bar versus that IOU. But going into an asset, so adding an asset, I guess, what do we need to do to add an asset? So it gives you a little pop-up saying, please fill all that out. So there's a couple of tabs at the top. So what we try to do is make it as easy as possible that everything you need to put is in one place, essentially. So you have to fill out your asset information, your finance information, your maintenance information. Then your image is actually not required, but if you want to take pictures, you can take pictures, and related items, you can pretty much put whatever you like in here. Is there a contract? Is there a manual? Is there warranties? So pretty much you can track whatever you want with any asset. And as I said before, customizable. So if you guys want to track something completely different, it can be set up in the background to track something else to do with that asset. So once you get an asset, I guess, what do you need to do per the new legislation? I guess the first starting point is the legislation Scott went through is retirement village assets over $1,000. All right, so that's your starting point. This program does, however, allow you to put in assets less than 1,000. It allows you to put in assets that have nothing to do with retirement if you want to track that, which I'll go through. Just noting that when you do the retirement village reporting, it's tailored, so it only spits out the required information per the Act, i.e. village items or village items that are shared over $1,000. I won't go through all filling this out, but I guess you basically have an asset type, so say a dishwasher. You can put in the description, while you're collecting your asset data, you can put in a condition if you want. Some providers want to do that, some providers don't. Again, asset condition is not required per the legislation. That's an example of where we've actually added that box and want to track these things just because it's a good thing to do. One of the items we customize in this program is, per the legislation, you can have a couple of reporting types. You can obviously have individual items, which is just an individual item. You can group items, and the grouping rules is generally it's got to be bought in the same financial year, same effective life, and each item of the group is over $1,000. So if I bought 50 dishwashers, for example, and they're all $1,500, they're all 8 years effective life, all bought in the same year, I would group those items. What does that really mean? It means in the reporting, it's a grouped item. It will come through as one line, which I'll show you later, versus 50 lines. And it's all about visibility and what the residents can and can't see, I guess. The key item being that if I do group something, the dishwasher is still in there as an individual item in case you need to maintain or repair that individual item. So I'll just choose individual for now. 10-year plan start date for all of us right now is 1st of July 2022. That's preset. You know, you've got to put certain information in there, make, model, serial number. Again, very legislative. In the reports, you need to have model, serial number. Barcode's another example of where one of our clients who's coming on board with us said, I want to barcode everything and I want to scan and do barcodes. And that's what Scott created in the background very quickly within 5 minutes so that they can actually barcode things. Location, where is it? So this item is key for a couple of reasons. It's actually, okay, well, where is it? And when you do the setup, you actually, so this is based on one of our villages in Penrith, which is actually a multi-story building. So it actually has 4 buildings, the building A, B, C, D. So you pick building C and it's cascading. So if I pick building C, it knows what's in building C. There's a basement and 6 levels. So I'm just going to say it's level 3. Building C, level 3, what is there? There's these IOUs. So it's all cascading. So I'll pick IOUs. This is where it is. Again, every village is different. So this is customizable when you're coming on board to be however you want it to be. That's the first sort of location specific item. The second one, which again is more added for legislative purposes, is department. So again, say within our village, ours is co-located, so we have aged care and village. We also have a cafe, a hair salon, some corporate items. An item we actually added is that sometimes residents come in and buy their own things, and obviously they're then in charge for repairing those. So we want to sort of separate those so they don't get bulked into resident budgets when they shouldn't. But the whole point of this is, I guess, look, most of the clients we deal with basically click that. It's a village item over $1,000. I'm going to use, say, a shuffleboard as an example. There's a shuffleboard room which village people in aged care can use. So if there's shared items, you can do that. Aged is shared between aged care and village. And the whole point of this is in the legislation, if a village shares an item, you have to say who it is shared with and the percentage. Okay, and that's what this is doing. So I'm basically saying, even though this isn't the case, right? This dishwasher is shared between the aged care and the village, which it could be, right? In the reporting, it will then come out and tell me that. It says this dishwasher is shared with the aged care. And the second bit you have to do is when you do that, what does the legislation say? It says you need to say what is the share. So I'm going to say it's 50% aged care, 50% village. And again, these connotations can be customizable. That's just what we use. RAC is aged care, RVP is village partnership. So again, it's more you're tracking all that stuff. So I guess just from that, you can see sort of the level of detail we went into to make sure that it's legislatively sound and all this stuff is coming through to the reports so that once you actually set this up, it's all done. You don't have to worry about it again unless things like the percentages change or things like that. That's your base information. Your financial information, I won't put this in, but I guess the main items you want to put in is when was it bought, how much was it bought for, the effective life. The key thing about the effective life is if you've actually added a dishwasher before, it remembers it. So remember this 8 years, so it's already there. If it's a new item, you'd have to go to the ATO tables and find out what it is. You have to have a proposed date of capital replacement. At this stage, we've set it as, I'm just going to fake a date in here. If we purchase it then, it does that plus 8 years is 2030. So it actually pre-calculates in the background. Again, if you guys have different calculations that you want to use, customizable. So that's your sort of financial information. Then your maintenance information. So this is where the legislation gets a bit fun. So there's certain things you need to put in there. So you need to put the proposed frequency of preventative maintenance, monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly. There might not be any. This section I'll come back to in a second. And again, the really fun bit is you have to have a 10-year plan. So for each asset over $1,000, you have to have a 10-year plan, which is what this is. And they very kindly in the legislation, they split it so that you actually have to say your 10-year plan for maintenance and your 10-year plan for repairs. So obviously maintenance is generally preventative maintenance. So really that's going to link to your contracts in general. But basically you have a plan, right? So it's going to be 100, it might go up by CPI, for example, or there might not even be a maintenance plan, right? So for example, dishwashers, we don't have a preventative maintenance plan. I'm just doing this for showing purposes. So you might have that blank, but I guess this is your 10-year plan. Automatically, it tells you what your total 10-year plan is and does the share. So in the previous one, we said it was 50-50. So it automatically tells me the village share is $215 for the 10 years. Similarly, you have a 10-year repair plan. And, you know, this is one of the difficult ones that we're finding is, you know, who knows, but I guess we've got to come up with something to keep the secretary happy. So similarly there. So everything I just showed you, that's pretty much what's in the import template. So in your import template is this asset information. You fill that in, the financial information, what's your 10-year maintenance plan, what's your 10-year repair plan, and a couple of other things, but pretty much that's the information you initially need. That is in your Excel import template. You basically take that away, you fill it in, give it back to Scott and his team, they upload it, and you essentially have your asset register. That's pretty much your, I guess, information you need in there. Now, once your asset's obviously in there, the legislation still continues, but that gets you to day one. So what happens after day one? Every time you maintain and repair an asset, you need to track it, and you need to track certain things to do with it, and that is what this section is doing. So every time you have a preventative maintenance task or a reactive maintenance, which is basically a repair, you can add a task and basically fill in the information. Now, there's a couple, I guess we have clients that are doing different things. Some people are just filling this in at the end. The other alternative to that is that you can actually use the maintenance task platform of this program to actually use it as a workflow. So your maintenance goes in there, it goes to your either contractor or your maintenance person, they complete the work. Once they've completed the work, it sends a notification to, say, accounts to put the price in once they get the invoice, all that. So there's a bit of a process and workflow you can actually do in the background and actually use this to do all your maintenance and do your maintenance process. But essentially, you put your task name in, whatever it might be, fix the door, whether it's reactive or preventative. Again, actual cost, you might not know that if you're doing the process-driven one where we're just putting something in, when's it started, when it's due, who am I assigning it to? So I'm going to assign it to myself, or in most cases, you assign it to your maintenance person. You give it a priority, and it goes not started. And as I said, as your maintenance guy or whoever gets it, they can put it into in progress, completed, deferred, waiting on someone else. The key being once it's completed, then essentially once it's completed, you should get an invoice or something. That's where that notification becomes important to put $250 in. All that information can then be saved. I didn't put a completed date in, good. And it goes here. So then that basically, so for any asset you go in, you can actually track every single repair you've done, every single preventative maintenance on it. And what it's really doing as well is it's tracking the cost. And if you see down here, this section is pre-filled. So every time you do it, it gives you accumulated cost of repair, $250, which is split there. That says not applicable because I didn't put a purchase pricing when I was doing my example. Hopefully it will now. So it's 13%. So it's tracking that percentage. And again, all this is required per the guidelines in your reporting. You need to track, in the reporting, it will track this. So it will tell you every single repair and maintenance you've done on assets over $1,000. If For each asset, it will tell you what the percentage is, because going back to that 3-year report, the key is once you hit 90%, you need to make this decision, maintain or replace. And that's really what residents are going to be looking at. They'll probably be going, right, give me that report. I want to see what's coming close to 90%, or in most cases, probably less than that, to try and put pressure on to basically make this decision. And sometimes it will be replaced. Other times, you know, there might be other reasoning behind it, which you go through and it's maintained. That's pretty much your asset data, right? So it's all, as I said, it's all nice. It's all on one screen. You know, it's all done through an import template. Any asset you want to go into, you can come in and have a look at the information, what's happened to it, look at the percentage. That's the asset base. As I was saying, the other key for this program is the maintenance tasking. So you can actually use it as a maintenance processing in your maintenance contracts, or whoever can be on it, or someone's in charge of it, to give you your sort of list of what you need to do, what's completed, what's not completed. So all these jobs are not started, I can see. There's a couple in progress. You know, you can do it by urgency, by date. So then it becomes also a management tool of, okay, well, let's review what's in progress versus what hasn't started. Why is something 3 months old and it hasn't been started? So it becomes a good tool for managing your maintenance as well. So what does all this lead to, really? It leads, everything I was just saying leads to the reports. So from what I was saying initially, those sort of initial steps of importing your assets and your asset information, this is all pre-filled when you come on board. So we'd have your village address. One, obviously, it's a 10-year plan, so this is all 2022 to 2032. What we've added is we include item over, because as I was saying, some, us included, we actually put in other assets. So we actually put in aged care assets, which have nothing to do with this, but we just want to track it. Those are automatically excluded from these reports, because in the department we would have chosen aged care, not village. But another example is every RU we put the microwave in, for example. They are less than $1,000. They're not part of this reporting at all. So you can have this report to have a look at them. You just put $1,000 in, and it just excludes everything. You generate the report. It comes to Excel. Pretty much pops up straight away. I'm hoping you guys can see this. And that's what it does. So it does asset management plan. It gives it a little header. The reporting type, as I was saying earlier.
You may want to make it a little larger if you can.
So the reporting type, as I was saying earlier, is split between 3 types. You've got individual items here. You have, if you have group items, you have group items here. So you can see here, say in FY23, we bought loads of fridges, which costs a total of $85,000, right? And then there's construction items, so stuff like fire stairs. So this is, I guess, an example of, okay, when you look at that guidelines and legislation, what do you need? You need an asset ID number. You need, what is it? Fridge. Where is it? It's in the archive room. Weird. The brand model, the serial number, when it was bought, how much it was bought, the effective life, the remaining effective life. And this is where the sharing comes in. Is it a shared item? If yes, it would say RAC, which is aged care in our world, and the percentage. If it was just village only, which is, say, this item, it would be blank. So your asset register is actually quite a nice little report. Again, get that information in there through your import template. You already have your asset register. So basically, you are ready for day one straight away. And as you add or remove items, they're obviously added or removed. And it's always up to date. So straight away, you have your legislative reports. You don't have to worry about Excel and trying to update things and add columns and lines and worry about taking things out and go through all those processes. Just manage the asset journey system and it all works. So that's your asset register. I might just show you the 10-year plan, which is a larger report, as you can imagine. 1,000. So again, very similar format. So simple group at the bottom, then construction. Again, what do they say legislatively that you need to have? Again, you need to say what it is. just interestingly enough, they don't actually have to say you have to say where it is. We actually added that because it just makes sense. But obviously, because this is Excel, you can remove it if you wanted to. Then really, it's what's the 10-year plan. So then for each item, you're going to have your maintenance for year 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. For year 10, the total. You've got to say the proposed frequency of maintenance, which is monthly, annually. Again, this is all required per the legislation. You've got to say the type of maintenance, which we find a bit silly, but we've just said cyclical. You can put whatever you want in there, because really, what is type of preventative maintenance? It's preventative and it's cyclical. Got to do the same thing for repairs. So again, year 1 to 10. Then it totals it. Your date of proposed repairs is in the legislation, but who knows? It's going to be the answer to that. I don't think anyone would know that answer. So ad hoc. Again, you can change these. If shared, the percentage. And again, for this report, you need to have the proposed date of replacement, which is that calculation I went through earlier on. So again, legislatively sound. This is what is required per the legislation to the T. It's based on what's in the RV Act, and that's your 10-year plan. So I guess going back to the required reports, so just from what I just said, you do your import, you basically have your asset register now, you have your maintenance schedule, and you have your 3-year report. I won't run the 3-year report, it's basically a version of the 10-year report, but for 3 years. But it's obviously a very important one because that's what the residents will see every single year. The key, I guess, being is, I guess, we have 60 days pretty much left to get it done. We also need to get it audited. So, and that's why I suggest that we should be having those. Well, I'm having those conversations now because there's a bit of a prep piece for the auditors as well, because they've never done this, and there's no real guidelines for them. But what are they really auditing? They're auditing the asset register. They're auditing the maintenance schedule. That's what they're auditing. They're auditing those two, not so much this or this. And that's the sort of conversations I'm having with them. And really all I'm saying to them is, here is the reports I just showed you. I'm giving them a version of those reports. And really they're really doing is ticking off those columns I had at the top, saying, okay, yep, that's in the legislation, tick, 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 so on and so forth. That's what they're auditing. So they're super key to get obviously up and running. Your 3-year report will come part of the maintenance schedule anyway. That sort of gets you to day 1. And as I said, after day 1, what are you doing? You're maintaining and repairing. So I'll just quickly run this report, because why not? Just to show you the sort of format of it. Again, this is required. Any resident can ask for this. And what is it really doing? It's basically saying, what's the asset that you've repaired or maintained? Is it reactive or preventative? You've got to put the percentage. And then basically, what have you done to it? And the report is 2 sections. So you have a preventative maintenance section here and reactive maintenance there. So depending on whether it's preventative or reactive is where the data will go in. Obviously, that was preventative. This is reactive. But what it really does is it tells you what you did. So on this date, I fixed the door of that asset. It costs $150, and the accumulated cost of repairs versus purchase price is currently 7.5%. So, and then what it does is the next time I repair that asset, so okay, it broke again. I fixed the light. It costs $200. It's now at 10%, so it accumulates. And so as you go through this, you sort of obviously have all your maintenance repairs on here. So it's going to be a pretty big report. Obviously, all the maintenance repairs you do of assets over $1,000 only. But it's also a good tool because you can really see that, okay, that one's getting to 30%. This one's at 66%. So we probably need to make some decisions on that one. This one's at 92%. Definitely need to look at that one, right? And that's the sort of thing that your residents will probably look at. They'll probably look at this and go, okay, well, that's at 92. What's going on? Why haven't you replaced it and maintained it? So this is absolutely key to not only residents, but obviously operators as well. And that's your maintenance report. So again, all these things are what the guidelines are guiding us to do in New South Wales for assets over $1,000. And this is what's required at the minute. I guess what we're trying to do is, you know, that's a lot of information. That's a lot of spreadsheets.
That's a lot of spreadsheets. right.
Like it becomes almost impossible given the amount of things that happen in the village on a daily basis. So what we're trying to do is the reports are there. They're done. They're legislatively sound. They're exactly what's required. They're already there for you. All you're really doing is import your assets, maintain every time you add an asset or make an asset inactive, and put every maintenance and repairing of those assets over $1,000. Just do those things, and your reports are spot on. Now, I guess the value add, which is what I like when I speak to Scott and he shows me things, is it's customizable. So as you're saying, you can add boxes in if you want to track other things. It can be used as a maintenance process through maintenance tasks. You can actually use this as your maintenance tool of giving it to your maintenance people or contractors and tracking what's in progress and completed and using it as that sort of work order style. You can track your preventative contracts, your warranties, all that stuff. There is a deeper level maintenance as well if people are interested, which is that they have an add-on which goes a step further with maintenance where you can track time and parts and workflow things. I guess that's sort of where I'll probably end it. I guess the other key point that I like is the sort of notifications as well. So say when I do a maintenance, I put my name, I get a text saying you have a new task, or you can do it by text. If you guys use Teams, you can actually use Teams to do it and workflow Teams into this product. So for example, if I've just completed this door thing through, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, because I don't want to be making stuff up, but you can actually, through the wording you use in Teams, once the door is fixed and I've completed, I can actually send a message in Teams saying completed, blah, 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 and it will update ASSETjourney.
Yeah, you can do messaging through email or text or Teams, whatever is the most appropriate. The bottom line that we're trying to do here is make it easy to meet this legislative, I hate to say burden, but it kind of is, and make it so that, like Aidan's saying, once you have the assets in place and in the system, then it's pretty much, in a sense, runs itself if you keep the assets up to date. The reports are there. Now, I think one thing we should talk about, Aidan, is how does all this work? How do you get it in place? I mean, right? You sign up with us, or you join. You let us know you're interested. Maybe do a deeper demo with one-on-one, and then simply there's a simple configuration template that sets like the name of your village and all those kind of things. And then there's an import template. An import template is where you would prepare the assets for upload, and isn't that really a key part? How do you get your assets in shape? How are people doing that? Either they have a spreadsheet already, or they're having people go around count the. I mean, what's your thoughts on that, Aidan, about getting that import?
So I guess a couple of things. So I guess just going through that sort of process that Scott was just going through. I guess how does it all work? So step one is there is a configuration stage, right? What does that mean? It means what I was basically saying about this. Every village is different. What does your village look like? What buildings does it have? What locations? What departments do you have? What's shared? What's not shared? Things like that, so you can set up the base of this. And just a simple example would be, so one of you out there might just have a village. Then you would not have resident-owned cafe, hair salon, corporate age care. You just have a village. So it's just customizing the base of it.
Right, and we do that. We do that by once you provide the template, you don't have to know how to. That's just simply we'll make the changes and giving you a simple, like basically configuration sheet to fill out. That's very, very simple, really.
Correct. And then that happens, and then you also get the import template. And again, the import template is the asset information that is required per the legislation. That's an Excel spreadsheet that needs to be filled out. Now, what I'm finding, talking to various providers, some have the information, some do not. It's a bit of a three or four step process is what I find, right? Step one is, before step one is deciding what you're actually collating. Are you just going to the basic and going, right, I'm only looking at assets over $1,000? Are you going full blown and you're doing everything, right? Then it's collecting that asset data. There's things like, what is it, your make, your model, stuff like that. So that's a bit of some people are walking the village, Other people have already got that information through when they built the facilities, for example. Others are getting QSs in to do it, or like Scott said, one of our partners, MDFM, do that for people. That sort of, for me, is step one, is get your asset information in there. Where is it? Is it shared? Is it not? All that sort of stuff. Step two then is more your financial side, I find, is, okay, well, what's your 10-year plan? What's your 10-year preventative maintenance? What's your 10-year repair plan? And filling in that data. And also the other financial information, like how much did it cost? When was it bought? Things like that. So there's a bit of a couple of step process is what I'm finding. I guess different operators are different. Some are finding it super easy to do the asset collection. Some are not. We walked the village in ours and just picked everything out. But that's really step one. And I guess for all of you out there, you're all going to be in different scenarios for that. But
yeah, I would say, and it probably doesn't have to be 100% totally accurate, right? To get the asset register in place, because you can always update the assets. You don't want to put any false information. But I mean, if it's incomplete, you can, before the import, you can certainly go in and revise things easily in our system after the import, because that asset list that we're looking at behind the scene can be grouped, sorted, displayed in many different ways. It isn't just a raw list like this. He's showing Aidan showing it like that, but there's many ways to filter, sort, group, and fill in missing information quite easily. I think one of the worries that people might have is, oh, I got to have everything complete before I get this plan in place. I don't think that's true. I think what is if you have, generally most of your assets in place and most of the information, auditors will look at it and say, okay, they're going in the right direction. You give them some more time to put it in place. I think they're really going to frown on, and residents will too, is if it's like nothing's there at all, right? Aidan, you'd say,
I think that's exactly what we're doing, Scott. We know we have the main items in there, i.e. in the apartments, but around the village, there's no doubt going to be some items that have been missed. But obviously, we will add those as we go. But once you have the main items in there, that's really what a resident's really, really interested in. It's going to be what's in their apartment. So the key one, right? It's, we might have missed a pump downstairs in the basement somewhere, right? For example, but we won't have missed their fridge, their oven, all that stuff. Right. So,
and a lot of it is pretty much this, unit to unit is fairly similar, right? Everybody's got a stove, a refrigerator, dishwasher, right? So it's, and as far as purchase price and purchase date, I mean, how accurate do you think that has to be, Aidan? I mean, somewhat, or
Look, I guess I wouldn't want to advise on that because I wouldn't want to give the wrong advice. All I would say is what I am doing and what we are doing is where we have the information, i.e. invoices, that is what we're using. Where it does not exist or cannot be found or is too old, we are using a reasonable estimate, which is generally when it was either built or when the last person moved in general. So it's a difficult one, I guess. The legislation says it's when it's purchased, but especially for those older villages, if you don't have that information, how can they frown upon someone making a reasonable estimate? I guess is what I would say, and that's what we're doing. Where we don't have the information, making reasonable estimates are based on something we can prove.
That's right. In the effective life, there's tables at the ATO, the Australian Tax Office, that you use, right? So
correct. And that's another key point is the effective life is per the ATO tables, technically per the guidelines. That's what you need to use. But what I think we'll find is as operators do this and go through it over the next year and a half, maybe 6 months, is they'll find that those useful lives may not make sense in the real world, and again look at other adjustments to that. So, for example, you might have a dishwasher that's been in the basement in its wrapping for 4 years, but it's got a 6-8 year life, and then technically you should replace it after 4 years, but really it's gone out.
That doesn't make any sense, actually.
And again, that's where the customizability of this program comes in. You can add a box that tracks stuff like that and say, well, what's the adjusted effective life, and the reasoning behind that. The adjusted effective life is actually 12 years because we had it And reasoning would be had it in storage for 4 years.
Exactly.
And it's all documented, it's all there, it's all good. If anyone says anything, well, that's, to me, that is reasonable. And not many people would argue with that, I hope.
I think that's exactly right, Aiden, that, they can't expect, the level of perfection or detail that's in the legislation is really hard to create in the real world, because there's so many variations and different things. And I think I find when we work with auditing systems in other, other countries, other government areas, they pretty much, as long as you have something in place that is reasonably accurate, they're okay. So, our goal here is help you get this in place before the deadline comes up, and then hopefully you'll get as much accurate information as you can. But it doesn't. I wouldn't fret over if it isn't 100%, complete record of everything in the system, because like Aiden says, you may miss a pump, you may not know all the details when something was bought and all that, and then if you worry about all, and not worry, if you hesitate based on all that, then nothing gets done, or you'll never know that information and the deadline passes and all that. So I think that makes sense, right, Aiden?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, it's, and no doubt along the way the legislation will change somewhere. And again, if it does, Scott and his team are ready to amend things better than when they change as we go. Because now, no doubt, when people start doing that, things like that will come up, and there'll be complaints and whatever. And then if there is changes, we can adapt to that.
So exactly. So now, how can we help people get started with this? A one-on-one demo? Maybe give Aiden a call there, or.
Yeah. I think obviously my number was on there, and I think it was probably on the invites as well, I imagine.
Yeah.
So either give me a call, give me an email, I can call you back whenever.
I'll put the screen up now.
Sort of seen it, but we can go through. I think for me, it's always good having a demo, because then we can also understand what situation your village is in and the sort of intricacies of your village, and show you how we can actually help you do that and change it and work with your village and processes already, so you don't have to wildly change your processes. We want, obviously the legislation has come in, which is going to cost either residents or operators or both, depending on how everyone was looking at it, a little bit of money. But we want there to also be value add and time saving. I think that's what we bring with ASSETjourney. So book a demo, basically. We don't have long left. We've got 2 months. We've already got a number of people sort of in the process of that customization import section. So we're just trying to get to everyone. So I'd say the sooner the better. Have a demo, get started. We'll help you along the way wherever you need to be helped.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's going to come up questions about price, and I'd say we're reasonable. We're not the cheapest, we're definitely not the most expensive. But when you think about how much we provide and the value of that we provide in the ASSETjourney program, you'll find that I think you're going to find it's well priced and well worth the cost due to savings and effort. And
I'm a CFO, and when if I know I'm talking about ASSETjourney, I'd call it a no-brainer.
Yeah, there you go, right?
Right, because I think the cost versus what you're getting and what everyone needs to do is pretty good, and we're happy to give that costing to whoever wants. Just send me an email, give me a call, we'll do a demo, we'll give you the costing. So it's a pretty set pricing. So
you see you see the screen with the number and the email, right? On the screen? Yeah, okay, good. Well, all right, I think we'll end it there. It's the top of the hour, and hopefully we'll hear from. Of course, we'll send emails out to everybody with the recording and just a happy hello kind of thing. Thanks for attending. And Aiden's right there, and Sydney ready to help you out and move this along. And thank you for attending, and thank you, Aiden, for
well, good. Thank you, Scott, and thanks everyone for attending. Hopefully I'll get to chat to a couple of you soon. It's always very strange just talking and not conversing. So give me a call, we can have a chat.
It is kind of odd with the webinars where we're talking and we don't hear. I'm so used to hearing back from people, like they want this, they want that. So I like those conversations a little better, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. No, all good. All right. Well,
okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks.